Greetings, this is Christine on Gibson County, Indiana, State Coordinator, Lead Recording Secretary for the Indiana Assembly. We're continuing with Brent Allen Winters, Declaration of 76, United States Constitution, a common lawyer comments, clause by clause. All right, let's go ahead and we're going to go through last week's first study guide questions, and then we will have this week's reading. And then we will give the study guide questions that you can, without answers, so that you can go back to them and review them. Let's get this adjusted a little bit better here so we can see this clear in our picture. Make sure. Yes. All right. So, and if you'll see at the top that the link of where you can purchase Brent Allen Winters' Declaration of 76 U.S. Constitution, the ebook and study guide, or he has the book as well that can be sent. All right, so let's go through the questions from the study guide questions from last week. So, Section 8, Clause 4, to establish an uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. Okay, so why would you think naturalization? So that's where for the land and soil here is there is the having two witnesses that have known you for a minimum of 7 years. That is that you have lived on the land and soil for a year, and the land that you're presenting to for a year and a day before you start participating with the assembly. Things like that are all part of this naturalization process. Verifying your birth through the birth certificate process. Things like that. Okay. Here, question number 90. Here, our Constitution empowers Congress to control immigration and to set a standard for immigrants to become citizens that courts are to apply uniformly. That's why it's across all the 50 states. It's not just on Indiana as to what the requirements are. So don't think that another state is requiring something different than what is being required here. And never arbitrarily. Number 91. Our Constitution's provisions for bankruptcy being allowed to a person every 7 years is in principled accord with Scripture's law, canceling all debt every 7 times 7 years, 49 years, and the common law. A government that never offers relief from a slavery of mind and body by ending the debt of the debtor trapped for life is incompatible with the first precepts of Christianity and is a living reproach to the nations of Christendom, carrying them back to the worst ages of paganism. Justice Joseph's story. In short, Solomon, the borrower, is slave to the lender, and slavery without hope of relief, whether self-inflicted or inflicted by another, flies in the face of both Scripture and our common law. Number 94, Section 8, Clause 5. To coin money, regulate the value thereof and of foreign coin, and fix the standard of weights and measures. Number 95. It empowers Congress alone to coin money, not print it. Only gold and silver are in view, and to regulate, keep regular, fix its value. Never Never change it. Fix the value. Never change it. 96. All monopolies are against the Great Charter, Magna Carta, because they are against liberty and freedom of the subject and against the law of the land, Sir Edward Coke. 97. To regulate the value of money means to keep its worth fixed to the steady standard of gold and silver, so that interstate commerce will stay regular, always free-flowing from transaction to transaction, from state to state, from year to year. Because it's a currency. It is a form of energy. It is meant to move, even though its value is fixed. It's meant to move. Alright, number 98. Bottom line, prosperity, right here, prosperity, requires free-flowing commerce, which requires that standard of trade that regular, unchanging. Okay. Number 99. All the confusion and distress in America comes not from defects in the Constitution, nor from want of honor or virtue, as much as from downright ignorance of the nature of coin, credit, and circulation. John Adams. 100. By lawless machinations of shareholders' by lawless machinations, my error, of interest rates and overprinting, here we go, of so-called paper money, these bankers are for their profit and without fear erode the worth of our dollar and more each year. I need to note that also in my own to update and correct that in my notes. It wasn't the shareholder in that one. It's interest rates. Interest, so I can have that corrected. Okay. All right. So, question 101. The issue which was swept down the centuries and which will have to be fought sooner or later is the people, lowercase people, versus the banks, Lord Octa. Now this one didn't have it, so we're just going with it. Any tampering with standards of weights and measures for goods and money is criminal. All right. Section 8, Clause 6. To provide for the punishment of counterfeiting the securities and current coin of the United States. A security is a written promise to pay. It's a promise to pay. It's not actually paying a debt, but it's a promise to pay a debt. Okay, to confuse the matter, federal courts have said that a security is anything Congress or a president's bureaucrat says. Says that it's a security. Okay? Anything that they say, anything that Congress or a president's bureaucrat says is a security. All right, number 106. 106. In fact, this one is, let's see. In fact, says James Madison. It is on this page. Let's see. In fact, so I'm not saying it here. Let's see. Well, we're still on this same one, so we're not quite at it. Let's see, that one was here. Let's see, accordingly to in addition. Okay. Let's see. In fact, says James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, federal legislation is to punish. Let's see, is to punish. Where was that? Here, just to punish any other crime is no law, being unconstitutional. It is void from its beginning. Right? That's where fraud vitiates everything, right? Because if it's void. So where is that one? Let's see. Therefore, the powers to punish all other crimes are reserved to the states. Okay. Let's see. I'm not sure exactly where that is now at the moment. Because that one was there, so it should be right after. Accordingly, pay its debts. Federal legislation to punish any other crime is no law. And is unconstitutional. Here we go. In fact, says James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, federal legislation to punish any other crime is no law. Being unconstitutional, it is void from its beginning. So that's where fraud vitiates everything, right? It's already going to be fraud, unconstitutional from the beginning. Because it's that's the only crime to actually for punishment and removal of. Okay. 107. This clause empowers Congress to pass laws against counterfeiting the United States securities, written promises to pay debt, and its current coin, not against counterfeiting non-government written promises such as bank notes. Okay. 108, Section 8, Clause 7, to establish post offices and post roads. Notice the differences in the punctuation, the capitalization there. 109, this clause, however, grants no monopoly to the general government to carry letters for profit, whether by outlawing others from doing so or burdening other letter carriers with regulations. Section 8, Clause 8, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. 111. This clause protects only authors and inventors, not governments and government-chartered sham persons such as corporations and other facades by legislative decree. 112. By granting exclusive rights to the printing for sale of hard-gained knowledge and the sale of inventions arising from such knowledge, this clause encourages men to search out, gather, and arrange useful knowledge into useful inventions, which is the progress of science and useful arts. 113. It does, however, empower Congress to protect by patent an inventor's exclusive right to his technology for a reasonable time, such as, for example, 20 years, as Congress's act at present do. Okay. 114, Section 8, Clause 9, to constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court. 115, tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court include the United States District Trial Courts and Courts of Appeal. 116, Congress, however, has no authority over the Supreme Court because it, as also Congress and the presidency, is a creature, direct creation of our Constitution. So they have no authority because it's a creature, not anything that it doesn't have the authority over it. Okay, 117, Section 8, Clause 10, to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas and offenses against the law of nations. Now, I should not have capitalized high there, but seas is supposed to be capitalized, so take note. And because that's in the actual Constitution verbiage. Okay, number 118. Second, according to common law principles, the high seas are not within the police powers of any of the several states. Section 8, Clause 11. To declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water. 120. Such wars out to win the hearts and minds of the native people drag on, doomed to fail. 121. Therefore, the foregoing clause bars the president from using our standing army and navy to dominate others in lust of using personal power. But isn't that what's happened? That they became the policing arm to dominate others. 122. Letters of marque and reprisal are papers by which Congress grants authority to private skippers of armed vessels to attack enemy shipping and partake in the spoils for profit. 123. In sum, let's see. 123 in sum. Let's see where that one is. Oh, okay, right here. By withholding from the president the power to wage undeclared war, the Constitution follows the common law tradition, limiting the war powers of kings to the witens, the ruling eldership's consent by its declaration of war. Number 124. Further, any president who refuses to await Congress's declaration before waging all-out war, the House of Representatives must impeach, and the Senate must try and, if convicted, remove. So this is the one time. So here it is. Here is where a president can not just be impeached, but if they are convicted, can actually be removed from office if they decided to declare war without awaiting for Congress's declaration to declare. Okay, So that is the study guide questions for the previous one. So here we are, pages 89 to 96 in Brent Allen Winter's actual text, Declaration of 76, U.S. Constitution. And here is the YouTube link to the reading, and we'll go ahead and play that one now as well. Let's see. Let's get that. Let's hold on just a moment. Let's stop the display on that. Get that video up for this reading. Pages 89 to 96. Greetings, this is Christine on Gibson County, State Coordinator for the Indiana Assembly for GenEd Wednesday, as we're continuing with Brent Allen Winter's section of Declaration of 76, United States Constitution. A common lawyer comments, clause by clause, Brent Allen Winters. All right, let's get this up. Okay. Section 8, Clause 12, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. Comment. This clause is to keep the purse strings in the grip of Congress and out of the hands of the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the President. As far back as Magna Carta, 1215, and even further, only the British and English gatherings of elders had right to declare war, to empower their chosen king to command the armed forces by their advice and consent, and to control the resources he needed to wage war. In fact, Magna Carta came about due to the barons' refusal to fund King John's war. The framers knew this history and the destruction that came upon their ancestors when the elders lost control of the resources to wage war to the commander-in-chief's whims. In short, power gathered under a single commanding will, whether of one man or army, is downright dangerous. And remember, says Octon, where you have a concentration of power in a few hands, all too frequently men with the mentality of gangsters get control. History has proven that. Lord Octon, though a staunch Roman Church devotee, derided the Pope's 1853 decree of unlimited power. Any presumption is against the holders of power, increasing as the power increases. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men, even when they exercise influence and not authority. Still more when you superadd the certainty of corruption by full authority. There is no worse heresy that the office sanctifies the holder of it. Note well, this clause bars Congress from funding the Army for more than 2 years at a time. Congress's power of the purse, however, is now of no effect because the Federal Reserve Bank now bypassed Congress by printing money for any war or welfare it decides to effect political manipulation. Section 8, Clause 13, to provide and maintain a navy. Comment. This clause accords with the preamble. Our Constitution requires Congress to provide for the common defense. Thus, merely promoting the common defense falls short of our Constitution's requirement. In a word, this clause empowers Congress to buy and build warships, docks, munitions, and shipyards, and to train and pay sailors and shipwrights. Because floating and manning a war fleet requires much time to build and outfit, our Constitution never limits Congress's appropriations of money for the Navy to only 2 years, as it does for funding the Army. Section 8, Clause 14, to make rules for the government and regulation for the land and naval forces. Comment. Again, this clause, as all of our Constitution, is in keeping with the hard lessons learnt and gathered into the common law tradition. The tribes that migrated to Britain empowered their kings as commander-in-chief only after the ruling body of elders had declared war. Moreover, these elders limited this power to their advice on and consent. So also this clause empowers Congress, never the President, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. Not General George Washington, but our early Congress, then governing under the Articles of Confederation, adopted the British Crown's military regulations for our Continental Army and hoped for American Navy. Congress, of course, removed all references to King George III. Section 8, Clause 15, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions. Comment. This first of our 4 militia clauses, see also U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clause 16, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, Amendment 2, empowers Congress alone to set standards and rules governing when, on what conditions, and how the President shall call forth the militias for service. The militia, being the people themselves, is no creation of our Constitution. Rather, our Constitution, recognizing its existence, provides preset procedure for its use. In fact, because the militia is the people themselves, government decree can never end it or its duty. Further, Congress's power to do so is non-delegable. No president has the right to decide by his own standard or lack thereof whether an invasion or local insurrection, an uprising, warrants his calling up the militia. If Congress neglects to provide this standard, its members have failed their sworn duty. Congress's duty to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions needs be cast in a standard order so that in an emergency the President can act with dispatch. If the emergency meets Congress's preset standards, the President must call forth the state militias needed. Note well, the militia of the several states are not the National Guard, but rather embrace every able-bodied man. Further, as with the Anglo-Saxon kings' authority over the feared militia, the President is the sole judge, using the standard Congress has provided concerning whether any given exigency requires that he call out any state militia. See this handbook, U.S. Declaration of 76, sections 8 to 29 and comments. A related common law and constitutional concept are the jury, a special form of the militia called out and impaneled under oath to hear evidence in a trial and render a verdict, or to investigate a public matter and render a presentment or indictment, grand jury. In the notes, even the federal courts claim authority of our Constitution to call out the militia to enforce their writs against the President. Supreme Court Justice Taney, while sitting as federal district judge, never doubted the court's authority to have the federal marshal call out the state militia to enforce the writ of habeas corpus against the United States Army. He pondered, instead, the ability of the militia to enforce the writ given the power of the Army regulars. The court's marshal said the Chief Justice had right to summon the posse comitatus, local state militiamen, to aid him in seizing and bringing forth before the court the party named in the writ, General Cadwalader, who would, when so brought, be liable to punishment by fine and imprisonment. But where, as in this case, the power refusing obedience, the United States Army, was so notoriously superior to any the marshal could command in the militia, he excused the marshal from doing anything more than he had done. referencing Ex parte Milligan 4 Wallace 2, 1866. See Martin v. Mott, 12, Wheat 29, 1827, Justice Story. I'm figuring is that. See also U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 15 to 16. Although Congress is to provide for the calling out of the militia of a state or states, the President holds sole discretion, says Justice Story, under standards Congress sets to decide whether or not to do so. Likewise, chieftainships of the Anglo-Saxon tribes, as also presidents of the United States, had jurisdiction only over the called out or the militia a-going. Anglo-Saxon feared fair, i.e. mustered and awaiting further orders. Okay. Section 8, Clause 16, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states, respectively, the appointment of the officers and the authority of the training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Comment. Americans have never amended this militia clause. Its straightforward meaning gives the right understanding. Again, National Guard units are not the militia. By the term militia, the American colonials signified both the militia, having yet to answer any call to muster, and the separate militia of the several states having answered the call to muster. The militia in colonial America, says the Supreme Court, consisted of a subset of the people, male, able-bodied, and within a certain age range. Although the militia consists, note well, present tense, i.e. today, of all the able-bodied men, the federally organized militia may consist of a subset of them, called forth in a local place to meet a local threat. D.C. v. Heller, 554 U.S. 570, 2008. Our Constitution allots concurrent authority over the militia to each of the states and Congress. The militia clauses empower Congress to enact rules for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States. The states retaining authority to appropriate officers and impose the training Congress sets forth. This militia clause gives the general government no authority to provide arms, equipment, or pay to any militiaman until the President has duly summoned that militiaman. He has answered the summons and is mustered in. At that point, this militia clause grants authority to Congress to fill his hand to do his duty. The Militia Act of 1792 was Congress's first legislation on this matter. Every free, able-bodied white male citizen of the respective states resident therein, who is or shall be of age of 18 years and under the age of 45 years, shall be enrolled in the militia and shall within 6 months thereafter provide himself with a good musket or firelock. Later, Congress's Militia Act of 1903 said that the common law militia is always in one of two postures. The unorganized militia, embracing all able-bodied males between ages 17 and 45, except armed forces regulars, certain officials, and others per 10 U.S.C. subsection 311, and the organized militia, which is the unorganized militia called out and mustered. This legislative distinction between the organized and unorganized militia is beyond the contemplation of the Constitution's use of the phrase, the militia. To be sure, this clause tells Congress to prescribe rules for organizing the militia. The Constitution nevertheless presumes operation of the common law requirement. The militia can never be unorganized, i.e. unready, less than regular. In fact, when our Constitution was accepted, the militia of each state was organized, and this clause leaves the organizing to each state, but transfers to Congress authority to provide rules governing how the states are to go about the task. Congress legislates, the states execute. Hence, whether called out and mustered or not, all able-bodied men from 16 to 60 remains by our Constitution's common law the militia organized, i.e. regular. All like provisions of state constitutions are good law, except where any clash. One cannot obey both at the same time with Congress's constitutional legislation, in which case the supremacy clause of Article 6 overrides the contrary state law. See Houston v. Moore, 5 Wheat 1, 51, 1820. See also U.S. Constitution, Articles 1, Section 8, Clauses 15 to 16. See Federalist number 4J, numbers 25, 28 to 29, 69 from Hamilton, numbers 41, 45 to 46, 56 from Madison, discussing the common law militia. To sum up, whether or not having answered any call, the militia are always regular, armed and ready. Further, militiamen, says Justice Story, are subjected to martial law only when in actual service, and not merely when called forth before they have obeyed the call. Thus, the militiaman, by his answering the call, not by the government merely making the call, brings himself under martial jurisdiction under his lawful release from duty. By Amendment 2's requiring that each militia member furnish his own firearm and training, i.e. discipline to its use, our Constitution confirms the common law militia. Further, as did the English Knights fee, our militia provides for the common defense, largely in men instead of tax dollars, thus reducing the possibility of unlawful spending and temptation to hire mercenaries. Section 8, Clause 17. To exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, as may, by cession of particular states, and the acceptance of Congress, become the seat of the government of the United States, and to exercise like authority over all places purchased by the consent of the legislature of the state, in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Comment. This clause gives Congress exclusive and full legislative power not only over the District of Columbia, but also over all federal military property called federal enclaves. Land it has obtained for military purposes only by consent of the state wherein it lies, and upon which it has erected forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. In addition, it ensures to each state legislature the power to refuse consent to the general government's request to build military works and structures within the state's borders. However, once a state has of its own consent transferred such land title to the federal government, and that government has erected structures for military purposes, as long as that land is being used for military purposes, that state is without right to demand return of that land to the exclusive jurisdiction of the state's laws. Section 8, Clause 18, and to make all laws which shall be necessary and proper for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Comment. This is the necessary and proper clause, allowing Congress to deal with matters our Constitution never mentions. but which are nonetheless necessary to carry out powers the Constitution lists. Being necessary under this clause, however, never allows Congress open-ended power. Thus, even though an act of Congress is necessary, government must carry out such an act in keeping with all of the Constitution's other demands and restraints under due process, which is the course of the common law. See this handbook, U.S. Declaration of 76, sections 3 to 5, 7 to 8, and comments. In all events, the word necessary and proper include no power to pass criminal statutes, take criminal jurisdiction over a matter, or otherwise seek a prescribed result. In sum, the words necessary and proper are not words of raw power, but words of administration and process. Let the chips fall where they may. Where the right process is followed, our Constitution ratifies the result. And we'll pick up on the next call. Peace and love. Greetings, this is Chris. All right, so that was that one. Let's go ahead now and we will read through the study guide questions for this segment. So here we have, it should display, yeah. Okay, so here we have Section 8, Clause 12. To raise and support armies but no appropriation of blank to that use shall be for a longer term than blank years. 126. In fact, blank blank came about due to the Baron's refusal to fund King John's War. 127. Lord Acton. Any presumption is against the holders of power increasing as the power increases. Power tends to blank, and blank power corrupts absolutely. 128. Note well, this clause bars Congress from the blank for more than 2 years at a time. 129. Section 8, Clause 13, to provide and maintain a blank. Question 130. In a word, this clause empowers Congress to buy and build blank docks, munitions, and shipyards, and to blank and pay blank in shipwrights. Section 8, Clause 14, to make blank for the government and regulation of the land and naval blank. 132. So also this clause empowers blank, never the blank, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces. 133. Not General George Washington, but our early Congress, then governing under the Articles of Confederation, adopted the blank blank military regulations for a continental army and hoped for American Navy. 134. Section 8, Clause 15, to provide for calling forth the blank, to execute the laws of the Union blank, insurrections and blank invasions. 135. In fact, because the militia is the blank themselves, government blank can never end it or its duty. Further, Congress's power to do so is blank blank. No president has right to decide by his own standard or lack thereof whether an invasion or local insurrection uprising warrants his calling up the blank. Note well, the militia of the several states are not the blank blank, but rather embrace blank able-bodied man. Section 8, Clause 16, to provide for blank blank and blank the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the states respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. 139. Americans have never blanked this militia clause. Its straightforward meaning gives the right understanding. Number 140. Our Constitution allots blank blank over the militia of each of the states and Congress. 141. The Militia Act of blank was Congress's blank legislation on this matter. 142. Every free, able-bodied white male citizen of the respective states resident therein who is or shall be of age of blank years and under the age of blank years shall be enrolled in the militia. 143. And this clause leaves the organizing to each state, but transfers to Congress authority to provide rules governing how the states are to go about the task. Congress blank, the state blank. 144. Hence, whether called out and blank or not, all able-bodied men from 16 to 60 remains by our Constitution's common law the militia organized, i.e. blank. 145. To sum up, whether or not having answered any call, the militia are always blank, and blank. 146. Further, as do the English Knights' fee, our militia provides for the common defense largely in men instead of tax dollars, thus reducing the possibility of blank spending and blank to hire mercenaries. Number 147, Section 8, Clause 17, to exercise exclusive legislation in all cases whatsoever over such district, not exceeding 10 miles square, District of Columbia, right, as may by session of particular states and the acceptance of Congress become the blank of the government of the United States and exercise like authority over all places purchased by the blank of the legislature of the state in which the same shall be for the erection of forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. 148. This clause gives Congress exclusive and full legislative power, not only over the District of Columbia, but also over all federal military property called federal blank. Land it is obtained for military purposes only by blank of the state wherein it lies, and upon which it has erected forts, magazines, arsenals, dockyards, and other needful buildings. Interesting to see what they've retermed needful buildings are given this administration and everything. Section 8, Clause 18, number 149, and to make all laws which shall be blank and blank for carrying into execution the foregoing powers and all the other powers vested by this Constitution in the government of the United States or in any department or officer thereof. Number 150, thus, even though an act of Congress is necessary, blank must carry out such an act in keeping with all the Constitution's other demands and restraints under blank, which is the course of the common law. Number 151, in sum, the words necessary and proper are not words of raw power, but words of blank and blank. Okay, so that is all for the reading for this week and for next. Want to remind you that at this time, Mondays at 6 p.m. Central, the first and third Mondays, the General Assembly and Militia Assembly meet. And then the second and fourth Mondays is the General Assembly and the Militia Assembly. Militia Assembly is connected to all the parts of the Assembly, so therefore we're bringing the Militia Assembly along with everything because they're a part of it all, right? They're connected. There is no way to not have the militia, right? Because we're the people. All right, and we are teaming up with Kentucky as they do not have a state coordinator at this time. They're needing to borrow a state coordinator to help support them with those needs, while the Kentucky Assembly has a marshal at arms. And so the marshal at arms then, which is Justin, is serving to help support and take on Indiana until we are able to stand up with a marshal at arms for our assembly. So we're taking the lead and showing how those within their own postal area can be able to team together and be neighboring states. with each other and help support each other. We're changing the whole the concept of what's going on here. So we're showing how we can join with our neighboring states within our postal areas so that we can be able to help ensure that all things are being met to support the militia and the people within the state, right? Okay, so now they met last night for their assembly committee meeting to decide how we can be able to join our assembly calls, and with Joe, our Area 4 chief, as well as the executive director for the Peacekeeping Task Force for the Federation, who is a Kentuckian. So we're supporting each other in this aspect as well, but it's also that we're getting direct training from Joe in supporting how we're to build our General Assembly, the militia, the General Assemblies. And so we're bringing forward this to help build Indiana. And it's okay if you don't want to participate. That's fine. There are many of you that aren't going to participate. That's why it is a very narrow path to be able to make this happen. Only a few that have the fortitude within them to be able to know that they have the power of no, and to be able to stand up to be able to do this are the ones that are going to make this happen. So those are the ones that we're looking for and calling out, and those are the ones that are going to make this happen. So we're grateful for you. We're here to be able to make sure that you are protected, and that your inheritance and that your rights to liberty and the pursuit of happiness are included in that. So, but we also know that only those that are going to be strong enough to be able to make this stand are going to be the ones that are actually going to be participating with this. So those are the ones that we're speaking directly to, and we're welcoming you to come forward. Same process as with everyone else, is that you identify yourself, you're going to present your armored up status correction, perform a background check by clearchecks.com. This is all over in all emails, to do a background check and present that full PDF report to records at the Indiana Assembly.org, as well as then a autographed and thumbprint sealed participation member agreement. If you're wanting to step up in the juror assembly to be a juror participant, that means then you have to follow the same procedure of the background check and the participation member agreement, and then there's also the letter of intent to join the juror assembly. So it's not just anybody and everybody. It's not a free-for-all for anybody to just come plowing in. It is for the safety and security of the nationals. We're here to protect you. It's not for just an overrun of everything. So again, those with the fortitude and those that are going to have the discipline within themselves to do the homework, to show up, to actually participate in this. Those are the ones that are going to be able to make this happen. All right. So here are the live streaming platforms, or where we're all placing, uploading videos, things like that. Locals, Odyssey, Rumble, the links there. If you have support with social media administration, show us where you have actual current work. It's not about hearsay or I said so. We want to actually see it in action, right? If you know of other platforms that we can connect in with, we can be able to do that as well. Also note here that I need to adjust that link here. All right, so also for the assembly, I want to make sure, because they have the store available, as well as we've got this separate website at Home on Indiana. This is more for it's not for assembly building, but it's for connecting with our community, being able to get more involved. It's going to have bringing forward a directory for Indiana state nationals that have private trade businesses, just as the Federation site offers as a American business directory for trade businesses on the state. So that is, look forward to that coming, as well as there are the store items available to be able to purchase your items. I have, according to the video that I posted out from the message from Anna about the do not trespassing signs, need to have a date and contact. So I've updated the signs. So here is a corrugated plastic, so a regular like yard sign with the wire stake for it. And then here are here's for the aluminum sign. Both do come with the frame holes, so it's already, the holes are already there, but one doesn't have a holder and one does. So that is the difference in the pricing there, because it's not the same kind of a holder that you're going to have for the corrugated plastic. As well as there are other items available here that you can be able to help support the assembly and your daily walk. All right. Let's see. We'll get back to this. All right. So I wanted to show you that those items are up there and available for you to purchase. All these items are all going through a third party to be able to print and create, so they'll be shipped from them. And but again, it's a very small, being that it's their printing and shipping of items and stuff like that. So a very small amount actually comes to the assembly, but it is a means to support the assembly, and more importantly, to get you the that added shielding while you're out there. All right. I want to thank you all for joining the call with us, and I want to wish you peace and love, and have a great day.